Whereas if we separate out the healthcare power of attorney and it says a durable power of attorney for healthcare and HIPAA disclosure, if that's what the title of the instrument is, it's clear what this is for. This is to appoint someone to make healthcare decisions for me and to look at my medical records if they need to. They can look at the title and they don't even have to read the rest of it. It's obvious what it is. And so it's very rare for a doctor's office to reject a medical or healthcare power of attorney. But it's very common for them to reject a general durable power of attorney. Very common. So another good reason for separating this out. Now, generally speaking, most lawyers draft a healthcare power of attorney a little bit differently. And it's really a reflection of the fact that unlike financial decision making where you may reach a point of incapacity where you're not going to regain capacity later, you're in decline and you're likely that you're not going to retain capacity later. With healthcare decision making, there may very well be periods of time where you're temporarily incapacitated. And so a healthcare power of attorney has to recognize that fact. So the way that they're more commonly drafted is that they spring into effect as needed and they become ineffective when the need no longer exists. So they're generally drafted to have language like this: shall be effected during any period of time in which in the judgment of my doctor I am incapable of making or communicating a healthcare choice. And then, if I reach the point where I'm no longer incapable of making a healthcare choice and my doctor says, oh, you're capable now, that authority vanishes and they can no longer overrule or make decisions for me. And so, one of the key principles that I teach my students is the 3 C's. A conscious, competent, communicative patient always makes their own healthcare decisions. Always. It doesn't matter whether they've appointed someone under a healthcare power of attorney or not. It doesn't matter if they have an advanced healthcare directive where they've made end-of-life decisions about the kind of care they want. If they're conscious and they're competent and they can communicate, they can change their mind. They can make a different choice than what they made in their advanced healthcare directive. They can make a different decision than their healthcare power of attorney may choose to make for them. So conscious, competent patient always makes their own decisions. But when they're not, a healthcare power of attorney may come into effect. So oftentimes I have clients ask me, well, wait a minute. If I'm appointing a proxy under my advanced healthcare directive, and their job is to make medical decisions for me when I'm incapacitated, why do I also need a durable power of attorney for healthcare with an agent to make medical decisions for me? And the difference is that an agent under a healthcare power of attorney may have authority only for a temporary period of time. So let's say that I leave here today and I pull out on the road and heaven forbid I forget to look left and someone hits me and I'm unconscious. They take me to the hospital and I'm unconscious. And the doctor says, well, he's unconscious now. We've got to take him into surgery. We've got to repair this damage that he has to his arm. We need to do it right away, but he can't give us authority to do that. Okay? Now, the doctor may decide on their own that there is an immediate health risk, an endangerment to my life, and therefore on their own authority they're going to operate. But they're going to be much more comfortable if I have an agent under a healthcare power of attorney. And the minute I became unconscious, their authority sprang into effect. And so my wife can come down to the hospital and say, yes, I'm his agent, make those repairs. Repair that arm, fix that arm, take him into surgery, you have my permission. Now I come out of surgery and I wake up, I come out of anesthesia, and I talk to the doctor. Her authority just lapsed. The minute I became conscious and aware and able to communicate what I want, her authority ended. Now I have some complications, I run a high fever, I become unconscious again. Well, guess what? Her authority springs back into effect. So whenever I am not capable of making or communicating a healthcare choice, her authority springs into effect. When I recover and can make my own, her authority lapses. So it's not like a durable power of attorney where, generally speaking, once that agent gets authority to act on your behalf because you're incapacitated, and that authority is likely to continue. In a healthcare power of attorney scenario, it may spring into effect and lapse, spring into effect and lapse, spring into effect and lapse. So it's a little bit different instrument. Finally, Advanced Healthcare Directive. Have you studied that? Raise your hand if you've studied that in this class. Okay. A little bit. Okay. Then I'm not going to go into detail, except to say that an agent under a healthcare power of attorney cannot remove life-sustaining treatment. They have broad authority to make the same kinds of medical decisions that any principal would make, except that they cannot remove life-sustaining treatment. Under Alabama's Natural Death Act, only an advanced health care directive can grant authority to remove life-sustaining treatment for a terminally ill or permanently unconscious patient. And so a healthcare power of attorney can only be effective in granting that authority if it meets all the requirements of the Advanced Healthcare Directive statute. And so you'll see some healthcare powers of attorney drafted with some references to end-of-life care, with some passing reference to whether they want food or hydration. And that is kind of a hybrid document where they say, okay, they may not have an advanced healthcare directive, but maybe this complies enough with the statute that my agent will be able to remove care if they think that that was what I would want. So, 3 planning documents: power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, and advanced healthcare directive. And the last one is a will. You all know what a will is, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about that.
Before you move off on that, those topics, can you talk a little about just the practical availability of healthcare proxy, or the availability of the documents where you might keep them, just
Right,
kind of
right.
a practical way?
Yeah, sure. One of the things that we do is, and you don't get this from any lawyer unless they're an elder law lawyer, quite frankly. Lawyers don't generally do this. We have a whole bunch of handouts that we give. So whenever we execute whenever an individual comes into our office and executes a durable power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, advanced healthcare directive, we're going to give them 2 documents. One's going to be a document that they give to their agent that says, congratulations, you've been appointed as an agent. Here are your duties. Here's the standard you're going to be held to. Here are things you should not do. You should not commingle your money with your principal's money. You should not use their money on any of your own expenses. You should not use their money for investment purposes in order to make a personal gain. We give them some basic do's and don'ts. One of the things that we give them is called What Happens Next. And it's a document that basically details what they're supposed to do. Now they have a will, they have a healthcare power of attorney, they have a durable power of attorney, they have an advanced healthcare directive. All right, what do you do with it? And there are 4 things we address with that document. We address distribution. So we talk to them about the fact that these healthcare planning documents are only going to help you if your agent that you've appointed has one, so they know they've been appointed and they know what their authority is. If your doctor has one, so that when you go to the hospital, the first person called is usually your primary treating physician, and they know, oh yeah, Miss Jones in her file, I've got a healthcare power of attorney, they've appointed their daughter to make decisions for them. They know who to call. They know who the decision maker is. If you have one when you go to the hospital, so you have one with you when you go, because lots of my clients want to go down to the hospital and give it to them. They want to walk in the front door to DCH and say, here's my advanced healthcare directive, here's my healthcare power of attorney, and the hospital's going to say, no, I can't take them. You don't have a chart. I don't have any place to put that. So it's only when you've actually been admitted to the hospital that they have an electronic medical record. They have a chart, and they will scan it in, and it will be in your chart. And the next time you go, it will be there. But unless you're an admitted patient, they won't take it from you. We've tried. They won't take it. And so you've got to have it with you when you go in. And then they ask, well, who else should have it? And I said, with these healthcare planning documents, who do you want to have it? They're your documents. You decide. Who do you think would benefit from having it? Do you think your daughter in Chicago, who never sees you, is going to come down at the 11th hour when you're on life support because you're permanently unconscious, and is going to come in and complain that you would want life support because they're not ready to let you go yet? Because they haven't seen you, and now they feel guilty because they weren't here before you became permanently unconscious, and now they're not ready to let you go, so they're not ready to let the doctor follow your instructions. If that's true, if you anticipate you have a family member that's going to have a real problem with your choices, give them the document. Give them an opportunity to talk to you about it now. Make sure they know, while they can't complain that you're incompetent or incapable of making decisions, while you're having a rational conversation with them about why you made the choices that you made, have that conversation with them so they won't come in 6 months from now and say, Mama would never have wanted that. So we want to make sure that we distribute those documents to make sure they're going to be effective. They're going to be followed. People are going to know about it. The second thing we tell clients about after we've executed documents like this is, where do you keep them? Everybody wants to go down to the bank and stick them in their safe deposit box. Why is that a bad idea?
You can't get to them.
Access. Yeah, nights and weekends. How are you going to get in the bank? Accidents never happen in the middle of the business day, right? It's always in the middle of the night that it happens. How are you going to get to it then? The more pressing issue, and the one that seems to make more of an impression on clients, though, is that If they stick their will in their safe deposit box, most banks have a policy that if you die, your safety deposit box is sealed. And they won't open it unless they have a court order. Now, how are you going to get a court order to go in your mom's safe deposit box? And I oftentimes say, well, I'll go down and file the will with the court, and then I'll be the executor, and the executor has authority to go in the safe deposit box. I say, but the will's in the safe deposit box. They'll say, well, I have a copy. Copy is not acceptable. When you're dealing with a will, you got to have the original. So how are you going to get in? And so we talked to them about having a safe, fireproof place in their home where their agents know where to find it. So we talk about distribution, we talk about storage, we talk about how they can change it or revoke it. Okay? And so we talked to them about the fact that lots of people, you write out a check and you make a mistake, you cross it out, and you put a little initial at the top. We have clients try to do that all the time. They go back, they look at their will, and they're like, you know what, I don't think I want Jim Bob to have the truck. I just cross this out an initial out here. Well, guess what? You just revoked your will. Now we got to start all over from scratch. And I had the same thing happen with durable power of attorney. So, well, Cassie's moved away. I want John to be my agent. I'll just cross out this part and initial out to the side. Well, guess what? You just invalidated your durable power of attorney. And if we don't catch that in time, what happens is they reach a point of incapacity. They need an agent to make decisions for them. We go and we find the original of it, and it's been all marked up. It was revoked. The court's going to say it was revoked. A court's going to look at that and say, I cannot from this document determine at the time of execution, when this document was witnessed and notarized, what the intent of the grantor was, because they've now written all over it. And so they're not going to honor it, and now we're in a guardianship and conservatorship proceeding. So we have to give good advice to say, you can't amend it that way. You can't fix it if you change your mind. You've got to come back and see us, or you've got to go see another lawyer. We talked to them finally about how you revoke it. And most of these documents you can revoke simply by writing across the front of it, void, revoke, no good, or by tearing it up in the presence of an adult and saying, I don't want this to be good anymore. This is not really what I want. So the process of revocation is really easy. The other practical matter to be addressed is, do you go down and file it at the probate court? Everybody loves to go down and file stuff at the probate court. I don't know what it is. I don't know if they give out candy down there or what it is. But I'm going to take it down to the probate court. I'm like, why are you going to do that? And they say, well, it's got to have a stamp on it. If it doesn't have a probate court stamp on it, then it's not any good. It's like, no, it's good right now. It's good now. You can use it today. You don't have to take it to the probate court. But they want to take it down there and get a stamp on it. Well, there are pros and cons to that, okay? The big pro is that increasingly we have problems with banks, health insurance companies. They always want the original. Give me the original. I find this incredible. It's like, you want me to mail to you the one original that I have of my mom with Alzheimer's who no longer has capacity to appoint anybody, and you want me to take the original of my appointment and mail it to you in the mail because you're worried that it might not be good if it's a copy? You gotta be kidding me. But we get it all the time. So the one advantage of filing it with the probate court is the probate court can make certified copies. They can make you 100 certified copies. And they'll put all kinds of stamps on it and stuff that makes it look really good. And then you can send it off and nobody's going to complain about it. That's a good thing, yeah. Okay, I thought I had a question. The downside of that, though, is that once you go down and file it, you can't just tear it up. You can't just tear it up. Now you've got to go down and file a revocation, an actual revocation of the durable power of attorney with the probate court, revoking that authority. And now guess what happens? Now your capacity to do that will be called into question. If you have an agent already appointed, they like being your agent, they think they're good at it, they're doing their best, and you decide to revoke it, they're going to go, oh, no, Mama doesn't have capacity anymore. That's why I'm her agent. She doesn't have capacity to revoke this now. And guess what? We're back in court, and you failed as a planning attorney. No one wants to fail as a planning attorney. So we want to make sure that our clients understand the ramification of going down there and getting that stamp, is that it may be called into question when you go down to file that revocation. So all of these things are designed to make sure that if we reach the point where we're incapacitated,